Welcome, everybody. I'm Love Coach Scott Thomas, and welcome to tonight's edition of Straight Talk with my wonderful teaching partner, Trish Wright. And we're going to be doing a follow up to the show that we did on Saturday Night Alive a month ago, all about what's going on with our environment, with climate. Obviously, right now, the world is meeting in Glasgow. And so I've invited two of the people that we really respect who are making a big difference. So you are looking at the two people that are really helping to make Soul Solutions happen. Soul Solutions is a very powerfully local company that's making a difference, and we're going to learn all about it. The good-looking guy is Chaz, and he has a kind of the Capitan passion, it says, and knowledge. He's been working in the solar field for decades, and as a pioneer in alternative energy, going way back to off-grid living in the 1980s, Chaz knows what it takes to truly design and install a reliable off-grid solar system. He's a lifelong entrepreneur. He spent time in telecom, internet industry, and he also loves gardening and tending to his animals. He lives in West County, Sonoma. And then Lindsay is the marketing and sales director for Soul Solutions. And she also has been involved in marketing for 30 years and loves to connect people and businesses with products and services. I first met Lindsay back in the Harmony Festival days when I saw her doing wonderful presentations. So as long as I've known you, she's also been an environmentalist. And she lives with her husband, Eric, and a dog in a tiny home with a 1.3 kilowatt solar system. So you both are like really advanced in your understanding of ways that we can simplify our lives. And so I'd love to just open it up by asking you to tell us a little bit about Soul Solutions and your vision for the company and what you're doing.
Okay, thank you, Scott, for having us on here for Straight Talk and the continuation from the climate change show. Soul Solutions has been developing portable and temporary type of solar power equipment that's a little different than what most people see when they see the solar panels on a roof installed. We saw a need starting at some of the festivals like Earth Dance and Harmony Festival, where we did some of our first units. We developed a solar generator specifically for the NorCal markets for off-grid and for bringing in power at some of these events that wouldn't require a gas or a fuel generator. We said there's got to be something better than just burning fuel and listening to the noise and the fumes. And so we developed the Soulman mobile solar generator starting in the mid 2000s and with some other people, and started deploying those and building them out. And we had some of the first versions of that actually running things at the Harmony Fest and Earth Dance as just a proof of concept over 10 years ago, 12, 14 years ago. And Soul Solutions started up about 2009. And we continued the mission of delivering portable solar power through our solar generators and filling in a lot of interesting niches in the solar world, like the off-grid niche for small solar, the mobile niche for RVs and tiny homes and trailers. And we kind of kept building that out with our solar generators. And because we really love to do events and festivals, we brought in some more talent and really saw a scale up for this kind of equipment into the festival world, where we started actually building bigger units, more powerful. We were some of the first lithium battery integrators with this equipment. We started building trailer-sized units for lighting and bigger trailer-sized units that would actually, for instance, run a stage. So we've been actually fairly active in showing what you could do with portable equipment on a trailer, starting in about 2012, 2013, to run things like the Earth Day SF, a lot of Earth Days we've been running over the years in NorCal. Festivals like the Reggae on the River, Second Stage, a lot of local events here in Sonoma County, Petaluma River Revival, Railroad Square Music Fest, Santa Rosa, Juliet Park Music Fest, winery gigs and stuff. We could run a winery tent and, the power and lighting. And so we started having a whole production side of the business for this kind of temporary use solar equipment, which very few people that we saw were doing. And we built that out. Now, we really had to pivot with the COVID and the shutdown of the events. But the other thing that came in really hot and heavy in the late part of the two aughts is the grid breakdown and the power outages with disasters, PG&E outages, of fires. So we pivoted more into that field also too over the last 3-4 years with some of our equipment as a direct and immediate response to power outages in disasters. So we've stuck with these little niches in the solar, and we see a lot more upside and demand and interest of this kind of thing. The combination of community resilience and also this equipment doesn't use much fossil fuel. We really reduce the fossil fuel down to minimum or none at all. So this is a climate change solution too. Very much born and raised in the North Coast in Sonoma County here. And that's where we are now, ready to take this up again.
Beautiful. We'll hear from Lindsay in a moment, and I just want to welcome everybody. I got so excited about introducing Soul Solutions, I forgot to welcome all of our Zoom room friends. So I see a lot of our regulars with us and also some other new names, but always let us know where you're from geographically. I see already we've got people from British Columbia, Arizona, Toronto, Canada, of course, Santa Rosa, Cupertino. So let's know where you're from. We're going to also just want to let you all know that we're going to hear from Clare Dubois, who is an incredible speaker. We had her also on Saturday Night Live last month, and I did a long interview with you, and we're going to show some excerpts of that in a moment. And she's very powerful, very passionate, and I think she's going to touch your hearts. I know she's touched all of our hearts deeply. She's pretty amazing. So tonight it's all about really recognizing, look, we're in not just a climate change, but a climate crisis. The entire world is changing in front of our eyes. And I so appreciate people like Chaz and Lindsay who are at the forefront of it, who are providing very real practical solutions. And we're also going to, as I say, hear from Claire, and we also want to hear from all of you. So I want to make this an interactive evening. And before we hear from Lindsay, I want to give my partner Trish a chance to say a word.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Happy Friday night. And thank you for being here to talk about something that's, well, critical, crucial, and dear to all of us. I've had the opportunity to listen to Clare Dubois' interview, and it is stunning. So you are in for a treat, and I'm really excited to get to know these two beautiful humans here. And as you're sitting here listening, as you're watching and sitting here with us, I invite you to think about what your relationship to the earth is, what your relationship to each other is, and how you treat, if you treat the earth and each other as you treat yourself. And I invite you just to hold that vision of what is your relationship to the earth, and what do you do in that relationship? How do you communicate your love or lack thereof? And it's okay if you're there, but come back to us and we're going to hear some more solutions now.
Beautiful. That might be a good question for you, Lindsay, just to introduce you a little bit. What comes up for you as your relationship to Mother Earth, to Gaia?
Just a light question of the night, right?
The show's about straight talk, so
Totally.
Well, you don't know me very well. This is how I start most of my shows.
I love it. It's so deepening. You know, I go back to a time when I traveled. I grew up I was an Army brat on mostly Ukiah, California, where I'm sitting right now, even though our tiny home's in Southern California. We live this Northern California, Southern California lifestyle, mostly because of the virtual nomad desire from 2017 and making that a possibility, which is something I really wouldn't have thought about when I was jumping around on stages in my Betty Biodiesel outfit back on Earth Dance and Harmony Festival and all those great times. And the reason why I stepped into that is because of the traveling I did around the world in my late 20s and a near-death experience from, you know, parasites in India. No surprise, right? However, having that big experience that happened in my life at that time, to come back to a country after being gone for about a year and a half, living abroad and coming back and just seeing different levels of consumption, different levels of lifestyle and all of that, that actually drove me in a direction where I was going to focus on sustainability for the remainder of my life. And that has been true ever since I stepped into the doors of New College and got my green MBA, which was one of the first in the country, right there in Santa Rosa. And I've never looked back. It was from biodiesel to LED lighting. And actually solar was very much in 2009. Chaz opened my eyes. We were rolling out the little Soul Man with one panel. Now look at us, right? Look at all the panels and the adoption. And it's all because there's so much need, right? There's need for people. Right now I'm being illuminated by 2 lights, one in the middle, and I can go over there and turn a light switch, and we take that for granted that just can happen. But it comes from somewhere, and it comes with some kind of cost. And that's the straight talk. Like, I had so many people, you know, poo-pooing this, that, or the other. I'm like, yep, and we all still go over to the light switch and turn it on. And we, you know, we want that service of light, running, you know, I ran my hot water kettle so I could put my ceremonial cacao in my cup and drink a little love from Mama Earth, right? However, that cacao had to come from somewhere. We don't grow them in Northern California. So I take my own self, like, yes, I do love cacao. And I know where it's grown because I've traveled through Costa Rica. I am a traveler. I've seen where cacao is grown and bananas are grown and all those things. Do I make choices like when I fly, I buy carbon credits? Yes, because there's a part of me that knows too well that, you know, everything we do has an impact, but how can we make a more resilient future for ourselves, with solar being one of those? As someone that traveled around the country 6,000 miles with our tiny home, we needed that solar panel. We were in areas where there was no grid, there was no hookup, and I still wanted to drink my ceremonial cacao. So hopefully that covers a variety of points and, you know, what's in my heart. There's a lot of times, right? That grief and that true, just deep cry also needs to come out too, because it just can feel a bit overwhelming.
Yeah, I want to read, I want to really make tonight interactive. So I'm going to read some of the wonderful comments that have already come in from our Zoom room. And thank you, everybody. And then also John Carter has a question, which I'm going to ask you guys, and then we'll hear from Claire. Shauna writes, when I go for a hike, I sing to Mother Earth. Percy points out that if we're not aware and alarmed at what's going on, we're not paying attention. And he also talks about the very dangerous impact of war and corporate monetization. Cynthia points out how important a plant-based diet is. We have Tree Sister Suzanne with us from Ashlandia, Oregon. She's one of Claire's soul sisters. Steve from Mount Hood, Oregon writes, love to our Mother Earth and all of our occupants, and he's glad to be here. And John, who has a question that I'll ask in a moment, writes, while studying shamanism, I'm learning a deeper understanding and respect for the earth and the sky and the animals. And Mary Nuna acknowledging her love of Mama Gaia. Here's John's questions. It looks like Chaz answered it briefly in the chat, but I want to read it and give Chaz and Lindsay a chance to say something online about it. And that is, why are there not any reports that solar is not a long-term solution? I have a 7,500 watt solar system for my 2,400 square foot home. It works for me, except that the amount of clouds I'm now seeing lately is alarmingly more than in the last 2 years. So just curious, Chaz or Lindsay, if you want to address part of that question at least.
Yeah. So, all of the solar stuff is based on predictability of a certain amount of sun. If that's your primary use of the power coming in, is collecting from the solar. It's going to obviously take a decent amount of sun throughout the year to keep up with that. It may not necessarily cover all your power needs, and this is some of the stuff that we work with and are talking to in the design world around the transitions we have to make. It's very easy to think for a simplistic solution like, oh, we just go solar and we can just forget about the fossil fuel, but it is just not that clear cut. There has to be some transitions. There's various kinds of energy supply, hydroelectric and fuel generators. There's stuff like wind turbines too. Even nuclear reactors. Remember nuclear reactors? They were sold as a guaranteed method of clean energy for years, and people kind of like had a second thought about that one too.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And and yeah, if you're in a place where suddenly it's a lot of clouds and it's raining all the time, your solar system's not going to produce. You better come up with something else.
Okay.
Yes,
Or
I would
something
testify as a solar expert. Solar is not the 100% solution to this climate change or crisis that we're in for energy.
And
Nope.
I'd
There's going to
I'd
be
love
other
to
parts of it.
chime in on that because there is a product out there that I think is phenomenal. I'm going to share my screen. Is that okay, Scott?
Yes, please do.
Okay, so I'm going to dive in. Let's see, here we go. First, I had a request for a picture of our tiny home.
Wow.
Not a picture with the solar panels because the roof is angled. This is down in San Diego after Tiny Fest in San Diego. And this metal part over here is covering underneath, making ourselves a garage. And that's the one, when we tow it, we take all that down and then we tow it. So I just had a question for that. But I love this unit. It took my brain a little bit to understand it. So I think I can break it down. What Chaz is just talking about, here it is in a visual way. Is this big white unit. Batteries are inside of that, lithium. And then behind that, you'll notice on this picture here is a gas generator. So solar panels, gas generator, batteries inside, and what you don't see is that this can plug into the grid. So there you are, you're a business chugging along. Let's say it's one of the recent grocery stores, more of a smaller grocery store. They lost a lot of produce in one of the outages. Well, you can have this system running and being powered by the grid. Grid goes down. Let's say it's nighttime and you need to, charge up a phone and the batteries are dead. Your generator is going to be used. But unlike most people turning on a generator to use a little bit of power to run whatever you need, you'll have let's just say this is something we're using is 1,000 watts. And our generator consumes 7,000 watts. All we're using is 1,000, we're wasting 6,000. But with this kind of unit, all that power that gets generated by the generator will run that 1,000 watt device plus power up the batteries. So as soon as the batteries, and really the batteries are what you're pulling from. So what I love about this is this fully intelligent system. They do the thinking for you. And as humans and with technical equipment and things like that, it's actually much better for the equipment to do the thinking because it is going to be the most efficient. So let's say now the sun starts coming up and you're still using power. Now the solar panels are funneling energy into the batteries and you no longer need to use the generator. So it's this beautiful, I would call it a dance, right? The dance of electrons, fire in a wire from that big ball of sun in the sky or way in deep into space, channeling so that you can have your nice cup of cacao, or run your cell phone and be able to communicate to people. All the things that really, really matter.
Lindsay, I love that. I really do. And what I like about it is it's so collaborative, and it really speaks to what Chaz was saying. It's not just solar, it's not just this, it's not just that, but an integrated system that is smart and draws upon what's available.
Yeah. I mean, like animals in nature, they do all kinds of things. They've evolved for so long. You know, we're really evolving with equipment, with you know, physical things that we need to rely on. And this gives us so much more power to take control of our power.
Beautiful. I love it. All right. I am going to go to our video of Clare Dubois. And I want to just briefly tell people a little bit about Clare. And I guess I should start by saying I have a little bit of a crush on her, not in a romantic way, but in just really respecting her dedication as an activist. And she's really, every time I hear her speak, she really touches my heart, and I think she will for you as well. She's an earth-loving social entrepreneur and inspirational speaker who has worked internationally for 18 years, facilitating groups, coaching business leaders, and creating behavior change processes. She is the founder of Tree Sisters, and we've got a member of Tree Sisters with us, so maybe we'll even have Suzanne come on and say a few words. I'm not going to say too much more about her bio, because I think when you just hear her speak, that's going to do the trick. What I can say is that Clare, and I don't know if we're going to show this part, but in my interview with her, she talked about how she grew up in a very dysfunctional family. She was very shy, she was very shut down, she was very disconnected, and she had an experience that woke her up to her love of Mother Earth. And so the part of the interview that we're going to show is her talking about this life-changing moment. And it's very beautiful. And then maybe I'd love to hear from some of us, some on panel, some watching, about other life-changing moments we may have had that help us connect more to Mother Earth and where we stand. So here we go with Clare Dubois. Oops, oh, it's asking, Zoom is asking me to restart my audio. Trish, I need you to say a word about Clare while I make this happen.
What is amazing about Clare and what she shares is that it's so deeply personal, and it's not a common experience, but it's so easy to empathize and to connect in that space with her. Like, and you're going to understand as we all watch this together, like you're going to understand what I'm saying here.
Thanks, Trish. Thank you for covering for me. You did so well. And one of the things that you are saying that is really different is embracing we have 5 years. We have 5 years. There's something about that that's, I mean, of course, in my awareness, it's like, oh my God, catastrophic climate change has begun. You know, I like you, we live in wildfire country, you know. I mean, 5 years ago, we didn't even talk about wildfires as a season. You know, now it's wildfire season, and wildfire season gets longer. It starts earlier and earlier and lasts longer and longer. So anyway, but your clarity about 5 years felt like a lightning bolt. Like, okay, yeah, 5 years. That's about right.
And you can collapse under that. And it's not such a bad thing to collapse under that. It isn't. It's not such a bad thing to look that in the face and let it throw all our taking life for grantedness and all our attachment and all our everything, your fear for your children, your fear for your grandchildren, your shame about not doing anything, your grief at the loss of seasons. Our kids will never have what we had ever again. We're done with life as we've known it. And we've taken it almost completely for granted. Like, unless you're willing to let that in, you won't grieve deeply enough to activate, to allow you to access the you that is an appropriate response to what's coming. That's my experience anyway, you know, and I'm somebody that was terrified of everybody, and incapable of doing anything in public because I was just like rigid with fear. And this is not that. And this is a product of grief. You know, this is me. I let my grief catalyze my leadership. That's what I've done. It works.
That's unique because not that many people are driven by grief. Most people are driven by even activists. You know, I mean, I know a lot of activists, and I don't know if I've ever heard an activist say before that what drives them is grief. So that's unique. That's interesting. How does that, tell us a little bit, how does that happen? How did you, so grief usually does create collapse. It usually does create contraction and, you know, and not being able to really be very functional in the world. Usually when people are grieving, they're in an inner contracted place. How did you transition that into being so much more highly functional than you were before?
Well, I mean, so crying is my superpower. And I literally have learned to cry from each chakra. Like I'm like, it's a practice. I do it consciously. And but I have had a really difficult life. So I've cried a lot. And you know, I come from an extremely dysfunctional family, a lot of abuse, a lot of fear, a lot of, you know, the as messy as it can get. That's where I come from. And so I started, you know, in my 20s, I would say I was pretty severely mentally ill. And facing the reality of your mental state, facing the state of your emotional state, facing the physiological damage, a lot of damage in my body, having to come to terms with that, all of that, everything that was, everything that meant, everything that's done to me, like that required a huge amount of strength. Because if I wasn't going to come to terms with it, if I wasn't going to face into it, there was only victim consciousness available to me. There was only the shadow of the self that I could be, that was afraid of everyone and everything. I couldn't walk through a closed door age 21. I couldn't walk into a restaurant. I couldn't walk down the aisle of a bus or a plane for fear of people looking at me. Like, I couldn't do any of that stuff. And I couldn't function in this world. I was, you know, in my mid to late 20s, I had become pretty much a recluse. That was what worked for me. Like, I was a psychic healer, believe it or not, back then. And working with the energetics of creation alone in my therapy room, because that's where I was safe. And but I was also fundamentally dissatisfied. Like, I knew I was hiding. I knew there was more to me than that. I was sick of helping everybody else have a life and me not have one. And I was a crier. You know, I would burst through these huge periods of depression, endless tears, and then finally cry deeply enough for something to clunk in my being that delivered me into a different experience of reality. You know, those moments where you're in such despair, you're like on your knees, and then all of a sudden you shift from devastation into like such gratitude you don't know what's hit you. Like those moments of just like, ah. So I was aware for a long time that my willingness to turn and face and feel and alchemize the trauma and the emotion in my body was the gateways to next stages. But then, you know, then I turned it into a practice. And I mean, we've all had those experiences where truly facing a reality that we don't want to face, crying our way through a false floor of some way that we've settled, some way that we've lied to ourselves, some way that we've betrayed ourselves in our lives that has allowed us to live in a way that means we're fully out of integrity with our souls. Like, and then we finally own up to ourselves, and it's like a collapsing. It's like you can no longer maintain that posture, which is not you, and the deeper truth is welling up, and it's gonna have you. And whether it's tears or an illness or rage or depression or whatever it is, our souls will find a way to, like, you know, are you listening? Are you listening? This business. Well, I'll tell you a story just because it's hugely meaningful of the moment that I gave my life to the planet, and it came through grief. So in my 20s, I would have nightmares of no more clouds. I was having a lot of early climate change nightmares, living in England, where it rains all the time and where clouds are just like a daily occurrence of, you know, almost always.
Right.
And I was dreaming of no more clouds, and I was terrified. And I would go out and I would take photographs of clouds, and I would talk to the clouds, and I would draw the clouds, and I would be with the clouds. And then I would sit in the reality of England with no rain, which could happen if the Gulf Stream goes, when the Gulf Stream goes, because it's going. And I was in deep, deep fear. And that was part of what propelled me on the path that I was on. But back then I was still just hiding largely. So fast forward to 2021, I believe it was, New Year's Eve, and I'm at a 5 rhythms dance workshop, Patterns in the Sound, and they decide that we're going to do ritual theater on New Year's Eve. And I'm like, oh my God, like, torture me. Why don't you? Like, how is that supposed to be remotely enjoyable? Like, doing something in front of other people. Like, it's hard enough for me dancing in front of other people, but like, you want me to do theater? Like, somebody kill me. So
What
anyway,
year? Because you just said 2021, and I think you meant
2021.
Oh, so it was just a year
No, no. It was 2001. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
2001.
Yeah, I knew. That's why I wanted to clear that. Okay, so 20 years.
Yeah, 20 years ago. God, 20 years ago.
So this was like the big Y2K going into the new, from 2000 into 2000, that thing. Okay.
Yeah, and so they came to my little pod of 7 people and they said, you're going to play the Rape of the Earth. And I didn't sort of think, well, that's a jolly thing for New Year's Eve. I thought, oh, great. I'll be the Earth. I'll get raped. I know how to do that. That's simple, you know? So now I was like, that'll be the least difficult thing for me to do, you know? So they dressed me in everybody's clothing. I was wearing, you know, 7 jackets and 3 pairs of trousers and hats and scarves and all the rest of it. And then they put me on a throne. And my job was to hand out cups of tea, because that's what Gaia does. I will cry when I tell this story, by the way.
Thank you.
I was just giving you a warning. I was handing out cups of tea because she gives and she gives and she gives. And they raped me. And I gave and I gave, and they raped me. And I gave and I gave, and they stripped me naked. They yanked at my hair. They pulled off my clothes. They were fighting over me. They were fighting over every last morsel of me. And all the while, I'm handing out cups of tea, and they can't see me. They can't see that I'm a living plant. They can't see anything of benefit apart from what they can make out of my body. And they're chomping through my body, and they're chomping through my body. And in the end, I'm naked apart from a sock. And I screamed as loudly as I could and threw myself on the floor. And I'm lying on the floor, and all I can hear is, all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. And I'm going ice cold, and I'm going into shock, and I'm realizing we're done. You don't get to put a planet into therapy. We can't put it back. We can't put the fossil fuels back in the ground. We can't put the gold back in. We can't put the mountains back. We can't, you know, and I'm just like, it's like, oh my God, 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 oh my God. And it was getting louder and louder and louder and louder. And my distress I was like, my heart was breaking into a million pieces. And it was just like, we're done. We're done. Oh my God, what do we do? What do we do? And they picked me up and they put me back on the throne, and they dressed me again. And they're doing a little dance. And I'm staring out at this audience, and everybody's crying. And I'm gone. I'm like completely gone, totally dissociated, in absolute pieces. I couldn't even walk. They had to lift me up and take me back and put me back down in the audience. And I don't remember the rest of the theater. Everyone else did their bit, but then they came around with the presents. And so everybody had bought a present. You put it in a bag, and then you got to stick your hand in a bag and pull out a whatever and have your present. So along comes somebody and hands this bag to me, and I put in my hand and I pull this little square thing out and I unwrap it, And it's a blue book with one white cloud. And in the white cloud, it says, you can change the world. And I burst. I could hear this weird keening noise somewhere in the room, and I didn't realize it was me. And I was staring at this white cloud. You can change the world, you can change the world. And I realized it was me making the noise, and I picked myself up and I walked out of the room. It was raining outside and it was pitch black in the forest that we were in. And I started walking in the forest. And I was going, I have to do something. I've got to do something. We're going to lose our mother. We're going to lose our mother. I've got to do something. And this voice would come up in me and say, you can't do anything. What do you think you can possibly do? You could never amount to anything. You're nothing. You're nothing. Like, don't even think about it. Like, this is ridiculous. And up it would come again. But we're going to lose her. We're going to lose her. I've got to do something. I have to do something. I'm sure there's something I can do. Like, I have to do something. No, you can't do anything. You're nothing. Like, everyone will laugh at you. There's nothing in you that's remotely worthy. Like, why would you even think, I've got to do something? And it got louder and louder. And then it changed into this dynamic between the victim feminine and the patriarchal masculine. And
Wow.
up comes womankind in my body. And she's just like, we're here to birth the new world. We're here to love this world into fullness. We're here. Get back in the kitchen. Who do you think you are? You're nothing. Up she comes again. Down he comes again. And I was starting to witness this insanity that was happening in my psyche. The whole time I'm roaring with grief, like roaring in the trees with the wind, and I'm soaking, and it's like this complete archetypal moment of like hammering it out between love and fear in my psyche, and realizing that I'm witnessing in myself the human dilemma of, can I bring all that I am to this world, regardless of whether it crashes me down because it's not ready for it? You know, am I here to have this incarnation, or am I here to bow to the egoic lunacy that we've called humanity for the last God knows how long, that, you know, murdered women for 400 years, that has told us that we're sin, that does not allow for self-awareness, like just this insanity. And in the end, my heart won. Like, it was just fuck off to that, like, don't you dare, like no, like, fear does not win, patriarchy does not win. You know, excuse my swearing, but it's that level of just like the insanity is gonna keep coming, and you have to just stand there and just say, no, I don't care how much you want to manipulate me. I won't be manipulated. I don't care how much you lie to me. I won't be lied to. I don't care how much you tell me A, B, and C that is the narrative you want me to get. No, there's a deeper narrative. There's a deeper truth. There's a deeper soul in here that is connected to all that is. There's a deeper truth that is longing to get out. And these are the circumstances that we've created for ourselves to get it out, to break through to the life inside us that is here to live on behalf of life. And that was it. Like, I was given. I didn't know what to do. I had no gifts apart from my courage and my self-awareness to bring. I'd never worked for an organization before. I'd never worked before apart from doing my therapy work. Like, I couldn't even function in society. But there I was, like, that's it. Okay. Life, I'm here. I'm given. Whatever it is, show me. And that was, you know, that was the beginning. But that was grief. Like, I grieved myself through the insanity to a place where, because what is your grief? It's your love made visible. It's the breaking through to the deeper love. Like, ow, 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 ow. Like, there's the truth that is so poignantly felt, that it does literally alchemize something. It literally changes something. You're changed by it, and you can't change back. You can't.
Scott, you were muted, so we missed all of that. But what precedes and what follows this in her interview is how our connection to ourselves and to each other and the societies and the cultures that we live in, how we relate to that is part of how it is literally one of the core pieces of how we relate to the earth, and to look at the way that we relate to each other is how we relate to the earth. It's just a really incredibly powerful interview.
Yeah. And by the way, I intentionally paused it. We will go back and hear more from Claire, but I wanted to connect with you, our audience. And Lindsay, as a woman, I'd love to hear what comes up for you as you watch that.
Tears, first and foremost.
Yes.
And so my voice will be a little wavery. It's interesting. I guess I've ebbed and flowed through the passion, and I have a lot of energy. I came into this world with like a lot of energy. Like any of my dear friends will know, right? Chaz, you've been around me for the most out of this group of four. I bring a lot to the table, and a lot to like my passion and desire for this planet. But the burnout can happen, and then you kind of shrink back and get a little bit tired, so my tears, I mean, I'm almost like, I don't know if I can talk because it was just such a profound story, and so real. And the realness for me breaks back to the time that I had a near-death experience, that I was going to the light. I was feeling it all. I even did a 13-minute one-woman show about this experience, and the whole focus was sustainability. Like I had a whole dialogue with the other world, and it was all about coming back to take care of this planet. And I've done ritual theater, I've been in shamanism training, and if anything, that's something I know it. I feel like I need a sweat lodge. I need some cleansing and healing, and I'm an extrovert. The pandemic has not been easy for us extroverts that love to see people. And yes, Zoom is as good as we can get, but it's only can do so much in the box form. And so I love it on one hand to be able to connect so globally, from social media. And then there's just the deep getting together and crying and having ritual and being able to come together and really say, WTF. There was this thing I remember hearing about. It was like, OMG, WTF, okay. Like you just go through those quick realities, and now we're still here. And then I look at my friends with babies. I don't have my own child. I have a little dog, and I just think about the little babies and that little, I talk a lot about this with tiny homes and leaving a legacy. And what is this legacy that we are leaving? And it is a lot of work to be done. So thank you.
I live in a tiny home too.
Yay. Go tiny. Yeah, actually there's the tiny home with the solar panels,
All right, there we can see it. Yeah.
This renaissance of people, actually one of the biggest, there's 4 reasons: saving money, simplification, portability, the ability to move it, maybe not necessarily travel with it, and sustainability, reducing the carbon footprint. I have seen that profoundly across so many people's comments as to why, whatever it may look like, whether it's on wheels or just something smaller, because we've come from this world of like that. I grew up in the 70s, 80s, 90s. It was go big or go home, baby. Right. And now we are seeing the transformation of like, did that really satisfy me to have to clean that big of a home? Or my kids are all gone now and I'd like to downsize for so many reasons. And how do you power the thing? Right? Where do you get your electrons? Maybe that's our next campaign. Where do you get your electrons?
And that's part of the conversation.
Go ahead,
So
Trish.
part of the biggest part of the conversation, I think, is looking at our habits. I mean, all of the things that we're talking about, whether it's climate change or racial inequities or gender inequities, like these are all part of a particular system, and we have to start looking at how we're what that is in us, right? you just said the 70s, it was a go big or go home. So we're consuming, we're getting these outward things to fill something for us instead of finding. Do you remember the Sharif interview, Scott, where he was talking about Sharif Abdullah is this really beautiful man. I don't know if you watched, it was last week, the show last week, but he had shared this piece 2 weeks ago. I don't know, some time ago. Who knows? Time's really interesting in my head. That he'd shared that it's about finding the contentment and the joy with having what we have now. I'm paraphrasing and I'm butchering it terribly, but it's a really beautiful understanding of looking at whether we're consuming or whether we're finding the places in us to connecting with Chaz, connecting with Lindsay, like humanizing our bodies and our earth and our emotions, and rather than seeking out like, oh, Chaz has something that I want, so I'm just going to like, take it from him. No, it's shifting the system, shifting the way that we can passionately move and relate to each other in the world.
Beautiful.
And a quick thing to add to that is there's so much freedom in releasing that which is not essential. And the journey to figuring out what's essential to you, it doesn't mean there's some people that practice minimalism. I practice essentialism. For me, the bathtub in my tiny home was essential. I didn't have that belief system where one woman as a student in my Go Tiny Academy, she didn't believe that she deserved a bathtub because she was going tiny. There was was there some rule book that I didn't read that told you have to do a certain thing? No, but there's going to be a sacrifice if you want a big home, small home, whatever it may be. And the release of 9 truckloads of items of our life. And it just, once I started on that track, which felt like a mountain Everest, ahead of me. And once you start moving into that and releasing, then there's this lack of like, I don't need to dive into Amazon. I don't need to keep filling stuff because I don't have any room for it. But it's not just room, physical room, but energetic room for it as well.
Beautiful. Thank you.
And I'll chime in on the energy aspect of that, because in the solar world, to actually own your power, which is one of our little taglines, we're in the empowerment business, actually thinking through what do you really need? What is essential in your life from, the core stuff helps you to shrink down that burden. And just doing that alone reduces your energy footprint there. And that's just one little aspect that makes the idea of doing the energy transition a little bit easier. Is if you don't need so much energy, then owning your own energy power plant or having a small system that can provide and run a tiny home becomes a lot more achievable. Okay. It's very tied together with the consumption pattern and the responsibility of the user of like, what do you really need? What do you really need in your life? What is your critical needs for energy? We use that all the time in talking to our clients about backup power or their tiny home power. What do you really need? And think long and hard about that. And get conscious about it, because most people don't know where their energy comes from. And we're very much in the world of teaching and showing people to like understand how the energy flows, literally, that's coming right out of the socket and where you plug in. And so we say, watch your watts. It's one of our little taglines.
I like
I have a quick thing to share. Is that okay, Scott? Like 1 minute, maybe less? Okay. So anyone love homework? I have a little homework assignment because there's a lot of these big concepts that like, know your watts and know all this stuff. It's like, I don't know my watts. That's not something we learned in high school. We didn't do all this kind of like research. So I'm giving you a link. I'll put it in the chat, but I'll give you the page first. This is on my website. Chaz and I work together. So, going through this process, I really had available for my tiny home students. And it goes through, like, it talks about the budget. We won't go into so much of that, but it does talk about budget. Most people don't know what watt hours are, what watt hours per day. You would come back to this. You basically go through these 3 steps. 1, watch this video. It's like 7 minutes. Then you scroll down, you click on this, it'll show you how to do it all to complete your very own power audit. That way, you know exactly how much you use. These 2 lights that are here, the cell phone, all the stuff. It takes you through how to do all that. And then when you're done with that, then you can schedule a discovery call to really review where you're at, because I don't expect you to get it perfect. But the nice part is, if we end up doing the work together, it'll take like a few hours to walk around your house. But if you do that work to really know, from the tea kettle to the computer laptop to the television to whatever you have that's running off electronics or electrons, then we can really have a conversation about, how to address that. It could be, we connect you with someone that gets more solar in your home, go off grid, you name it. But I think that would be a fun journey. What do you guys think? Just curious.
I love it. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Thank you. I want to read some quotes and comments from our audience, because I really want to keep it interactive with the people watching. And again, so grateful to have so many of our friends watching tonight. John Carter, and this is kind of the first few comments will be in response to Claire's video. John writes, living without fear is the only way to live. The only way to achieve that is to seriously let go of the idea that there is anything to fear. I did that to get over my suicidal tendencies. And then when I got cancer, not being afraid of it is what got me through it without having any kind of upset. And then again with a heart attack, I've never had to analyze upsets if there's no fear. So thank you, John. That's very vulnerable sharing. Thank you. Mark Denisovsky writes, a profound testimony of self-sacrifice and immersive empowerment. This is the description of the depth of commitment that is required of each of us who perceive the global crisis. If we all change ourselves at this level that Claire changed herself, we can and will heal the planet, for we are all one. We are one with our Mother Earth. We can do it, but we have to be fearless and help and love each other. And we can take turns to achieve the ideal so that not all of us are completely wrecked at the same time. That's beautiful, Mark. Thank you. Eleanor Joy, just what an amazing story. And thank you so much for sharing. Yes. And then Shauna writes, and this is going to lead to a question. By the way, thank you, Eleanor Joy. She also writes, this is why I tune into various shows like this and Saturday Night Live. So thank you, Eleanor Joy, for that. Shauna writes, I've been wanting to put this out there. Where there's wind turbine farms, could there please be wildlife corridors put in for the birds to pass through safely? We have to move forward with our designs in a way that considers all life. Wildlife corridors are important in any planning like highways. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you. Eleanor Joy, appreciating all this information. And she asks, I'm wondering what happens to the batteries in the solar panels at the end of their life? So there's a question for Lindsay or Chaz.
I pretty much put in that because of electric cars, there's more and more battery that's going to be needed into recycling. And I only read one article about this is happening because, from Tesla to all the electric companies, but that might be more for you, Chaz.
They are kind of introducing a little more recyclable capability in the battery world. Even with the older lead acid batteries, there's quite a evolved recycling. You can't, they don't even want to let you throw away a big heavy lead acid battery. It goes back and is fully recycled. And the lithiums are also getting more of a recycling channel. There's a lot of work to do in this, certainly. And this is retooling kind of our industrial format of just building stuff and then throwing it away when it's obsolete. And it's a little bit more of the challenge that we want to think about with our modern human society to make things that last longer, can be recycled easily, what they call the circular economy and sustainability. And this is definitely a topic coming in more.
Thank you. I want to read one more comment, and then we're going to go back to a little bit more from Claire. Dia Therese writes, I will never again apologize for my deeply felt, expressed agonizing grief when I witnessed the rape of our mother Gaia, or inadvertently even take part in it. I wailed when the huge smelly equipment dug up a dirt airstrip in front of my cabin to prepare it for pavement. That's a moment, Dia. That's a moment that I'm kind of imagining. Thank you. Lynn writes, I'm all for sustainable energy. At the same time, do I need to be concerned about electromagnetic radiation? Lindsay?
My sense is, because that is a thing, there's a number of my clients from, mold sensitivity to EMF, that there's a number of products out there. And if it's around the batteries, that's something Chaz can talk about. But if, there is a certain amount of radiation that comes off of things that are electrons inside, we call it fire in a wire, activity. And then there's EMF blankets and other things you can do. The good news about putting your solar generator, like the one right up above me, can be far away from your physical and then run like a cord. We're dealing with EMFs from local power wires, depends on how big of a power wire that you're nearby. So if it is coming from a solar system, Chaz, what are your thoughts about, EMFs from batteries or any of the components?
Well, it's a matter of scale. Anything that's like electrical that's moving is going to have a certain amount of EMF. The bigger, like if you have like a lot of big power lines, they're going to have a lot more EMFs than, the end of the line system or a small solar setup. I find it interesting, though, that the people concerned about EMF are also the people that are demanding 5G and like wireless internet everywhere too. So it's a little bit of confusing around that because, the whole wireless internet and 5G also has a lot of EMF too. So if we want to be straight talking, we should really consider all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of straight talk, let's go to a little bit more Claire, because I want to include her a little bit. Trish, can you set up this next part? This is the what you suggested that I go to next. And you're muted, dear.
So yes, this particular piece is really touching on, again, how we got here and our relationship to ourself and the earth.
Here we go.
Oh, let's wipe ourselves out
Yeah.
and everything else out with it.
Yeah.
And this is where we find ourselves, and this is where we find ourselves.
So what do we do? What do we do?
We're inheriting the mindset that has normalized self-destruction.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, you have to go, well, that's nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Biggest step. Are you willing to recognize the fact that what we're doing is nuts? Not just nuts, actually insane, and actually beyond sane, cruel, irresponsible, thoughtless, callous, wantonly destructive through neglect of our responsibilities, neglect of our children, neglect of our future, neglect of all the people, the beings, the tree beings, the dolphin beings, the penguins, the bees, the microbes, the everything that we're not just rendering extinct, but screwing up. Like we're screwing it up. You can buy gene splicing kits on Amazon. You can screw with the very fabric of creation itself that nature, over billions of years of knowing exactly what she's doing, has carved into perfection to be the miracle that we're living in. And we think we can just hand those building blocks to anybody and let them potentially create a cascade of genetic nightmare. Like, this is how stupid we are, you know. And we're not just stupid, we're brilliant. We're brilliant and amazing, but our consciousness is so severed from the reality of our indivisibility, and somehow in the being pulled away and separated, we've chosen that position of dominance rather than humility. And in our dominance, we're dangerous. We're so dangerous. But in our ignorance or our unwillingness to recognize our dominance and to recognize what we're doing with our consciousness and how we're unconsciously colluding and why we think that's convenient when it is not, you know, our so-called convenient lifestyles are a death sentence for this planet. But we would rather continue on with our convenience and unconsciously arrange a death sentence for our planet than actually do anything about it. And it's not okay with me. Like, I can't just stand by and watch that. And I've not always been that way. You know, I didn't pop out of the womb an activist, and I certainly didn't pop out awake, and I didn't pop out brave. You know, I'm a mouthy, gutsy, annoying blonde now who has got a lot of opinions and is not ashamed to or afraid to express them. But that's taken years of letting my grief break me through my neuroticisms and my insecurities. And I've let myself do it through my grief. Do I love enough? Do I love enough? Do I love enough? Does this hurt enough? Is this more important? Like, what's more important? Staying small and polite and appropriate and safely inside my comfort zones and a version of myself that I think the world might like, or being a voice piece for this planet. And knowing that when I die, whenever that is, I will have given it everything. So it's a no-brainer.
It's beautiful. You know, just may we all get there. May we all get to that place where we can play our role. And I do believe each and every one of us has a divine role to play. So again, love to open it up to anything our panelists have to say. And then I'll read a couple comments from our people and our friends in the Zoom room. Trish?
Well, I'm not going to say anything new than what I've been sharing is again, what I love about what's being shared this tonight and what Chaz and Lindsay are sharing, and what Claire is sharing is really getting right with your relationships, getting right with the relationship to self, and getting right with the relationship to other, and getting right with the relationship to the earth, which is getting right with yourself, right? There is no separation between me and Chaz, me and Lindsay, me and you, me and the earth. Like, it is the same relationship because I will treat it as such. And if I treat you differently, if I treat the earth differently than me, then I need to look at that and why I give it, I don't give it as much attention and love and care. Why don't I, you know, if I have the opportunity to invest in a hybrid solar system, and I would prefer to get my nails done or buy a new car, like, maybe I should just look at what that's fulfilling inside of me. And I mean, you know this, Scott, about me, and many of my clients and anybody who's ever sat in a class with me, I'm all about the win-win-win situation. My brain, I don't know about you guys, but my brain is constantly looking for how we all win. I don't know what the mechanism is exactly, but it's like, if Chaz and I are talking and I'm like, hey Chaz, like da 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 da, and he's like, yeah, we can win this way. Like, it's you win and I win. And I was like, well, how does everyone win? Like, how does my winning and your winning win for everyone? How does that build that up? And that's how I've built a lot, like, really wanted to cultivate a lot of my relationships in both monogamy and polyamory. This is how how do I think about others and the impact that I'm having and walk in the world in that way? While Chaz and Lindsay and Scott and you and me and, my family and the earth wins. How does that happen? That's the conversation that I love that we're having right now. How does that happen? Right with ourselves. End rant. Ding.
Mary writes, I hope we talk about EMF and 5G radiation regarding tech. Let's not just glorify tech on Saturday Night Live. Tomorrow's show is all about technology for good, but really face the honest, hard questions regarding tech's effect on our bodies and our beloved Mother Earth. Let's not just glorify tech, but really face the cost of tech. Face it in a real way. Really concerned about tomorrow night. Do we really need self-driving cars? So thank you, Mary. Obviously, I can't address tomorrow night's show tonight. That's why we have Straight Talk. But yeah, any thoughts that Chaz or Lindsay you want to offer about just things to be aware of about glorifying tech or about 5G? Anything you want to share?
I'll talk about.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'd like to chime in
Go ahead.
a little about this. Okay. In the position we are in the power industry, there's this drive to put everything online on the internet, and like there's just this arc of technology that just goes straight into the glorious future, and robots are going to do everything, and AI is going to fix it all, and we're going to solve our issues with technology. But from my perspective, what I'm seeing here is if we're not paying attention right now to the bigger picture, we're kind of out of balance on the planet and our communities. And with the emphasis on technology, we're forgetting about the people. And one of the things that's been integral part of our, trying to scale our business and get the support for our business is, and we say this in our presentations, it's not about the technology, it's about the implementation. And the implementation takes human capital. It takes people willing and trained and passionate about it that actually go out and explain it to the people, our clients, or that do the service, or that are, engaged with it going forward. And that's the human capital. You can't put that into a, AI chat online, and you can't replace that with a robot. And we really want to emphasize that, the path out into, a sustainable and just future has to be involved with bringing everybody in collectively. And, one of our taglines that I use a lot is about personal empowerment, but I also bring in collective empowerment, because I can't do this myself. Neither can Lindsay, neither can any of us by ourselves. But if collectively we really put our skill sets together and learn to work together collectively, there's quite a lot more hope involved for the human race. I'm very clear about this from my upbringing and experiences in the field. And we're running into this kind of dialectic right now in the economic system, very much, which is a winner-take-all capitalism type of format, which is measured by dollars, okay? And this is what's actually probably going to get us in the most trouble of all. It's creating the most violence against the planet Earth, violence against women and children, endless wars. And, that's not the way forward, folks. If we learn to work collectively, bringing our own personal power and our own personal knowledge together and share it, and find some other systems that may be more sustainable, more resilient for our communities, then I have a lot more hope for what can be done here on the planet.
Thank you, Chaz. Thank you. Lindsay, I know you also had something you wanted to share.
Yeah, so there's many different directions. I wrote down the word hybrid, generation, and crypto. And much like Trish just said about finding the triple win, I'm often like just struck by there'll be someone talking about one way of doing it, another one talking about another way. I'm like, can't we just hybridize that? I mean, look at this tiny home. Are those wheels on that tiny home? I call it, it's RV from the wheels down and tiny home from the wheels up. And that's a hybridization. That is a solution that was met by the godfather of tiny homes, Jay Schaefer, living right there in Sebastopol, that lived through an Iowa winter in an RV and decided that's just not enough for the energy, the insulation that you need to retain body heat, in that kind of environment. So that's where that came from. And that's a hybrid solution of one thing that was out there in the world to another. And I look at the young. I'm 51 years old, so I'm no spring chicken. I'm a seasoned chicken. And the reality is, there's a lot of youngsters out there, and I look at that and go, okay, this thing that we kind of all those youngsters, getting on those cell phones, we created that. My generation created that. They were in the womb when there were people figuring out, I remember the first time you ever heard that one day we'll all have our own cell phone, our own phone number. I remember hearing about that in the 80s. And I was like, what? What do you mean our own personal phone number? I remember that moment. So we are always evolving. And there's a point of like, I literally heard it where one of the manufacturers of a tiny home company was going to build with AI or robotic. And I was like, I don't even know how my brain can process that, because that's not how I've grown up. I didn't grow up that way. And yet my generation is the one that started creating that. You wouldn't have robotics now without my generation creating that. And then we've got 3D printing and all these other things, with the amount of how long tiny homes, take to, put together, or even mechanical and equipment. But I also really struggle. I'll just be honest with like, does that mean where are the humans going to go? We're already having job challenges. Where are they going to go? Like, I really want to talk to more people that are in that intersection of AI and human capacity and resource, because I just couldn't imagine having no humans work on anything. So that's real talk, because I also am an owner of cryptocurrency. I don't believe in only the fiat. I believe that there's other ways, which I look at as like a global democratic way of owning our own resources. So those are all about, and look at what's behind me, this equipment that needs to come together so we can channel a giant hydrogen bomb in the sky. It's not going to be done with dirt. I wish it could. If someone can create that, that would be amazing. But we've got to manufacture these things. And then if we really go back in time, the reason why batteries and all these things cost so much is that we've had a political, 2 or 3 decades ago in the 80s, when Reagan stopped, took the panels down off the White House, and we basically stopped research. Solar panels are the way they are and so inexpensive because there's been such a buying of them. But the off-grid, the ability to make batteries and be less than they are now, we're just getting started, and it's only been about 10 years. So the cost of, being able to say yes to buying your power for the next 15 years. But I talk a lot about, in my solar system on my tiny home, I paid $17,000 for the next 15 years of power. But I paid today's prices. And what happens with energy? It only goes up because it costs more to go get that electron. And so what I tell people about is like, it's just like if you were to invest in something that's going to go up. Yeah. And so I invested now for the future. So that might be back to your question, Trish, of like, well, maybe I don't go buy that thing and I invest in something because it's more of an investment. And if we can wrap our heads around that, now we're talking about investing in tomorrow.
Well, I want to encourage that everybody can perhaps invest in Soul Solutions, because I know that you guys are doing great work. And to learn more about them, their website is sol-solutions, solsolutions.com. And you can invest in Soul Solutions, and there's a lot of ways to do it. So, go to their website, take a look at what they're offering, either using their products, or I believe when we spoke before, you're actually looking for investors. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, we have, let's see, can I share my screen on our page right now? There's the, oh wait, you're already sharing, sorry.
Oh,
You
yeah,
gotta go.
I thought I had it right for
You
you.
were right, you were going, you're good.
So,
Yeah, so this is a wonderful,
Got it.
go ahead, Chaz.
Yeah, no, you're right there if you want to walk them through it.
So yeah, if you go in there, you click where it says, invest, and they've got a beautiful video. We played it on Saturday Night Live. And this is the way to make a difference. Certainly getting educated through shows like what we're doing tonight and tomorrow night on Saturday Night Live, but then investing in small, locally owned organizations like Chaz and Lindsay's that are really bringing solutions. And I want to really echo what Lindsay said. It's everything. Because of the nature of what I get to do, one week we're with Indigenous elders, the next week we're with environmental experts, the next week we're with people that are relationship experts, the next one we're with people that are raising consciousness. It's all a package deal that we got to change radically. We have to radically change our consciousness, because obviously the way we've been doing it, we're going 70 miles an hour for the cliff. So there's a lot of changes that have to happen. And I love what Lindsay says about they all have to come together. We've got to find all the new solutions. And I love that your Soul Solutions, SOL, not SOLE.
Yeah, right.
Right. So there it is. I want to read a couple more comments and then one last thought from Claire. Diane, I haven't gone too much to our Facebook friends, but Diane Moore, watching on Facebook, talks about the Citizen Climate Lobby is having a virtual conference this weekend. All are invited. So she put the link there in our Facebook thread, and I'll put that into our Zoom room. And she also is concerned about 5G and Wi-Fi. So thank you, Diane, for being also one of our regulars. And Trish, I'm going to go to one last segment with Claire. Do you want to set this segment up? It's, yeah. Oh, where is it? Oops, wrong one. There we go.
It depends which one it is.
Yeah, let me go to your notes. It is the segment. I've gone to, sorry. What we don't know.
Okay, I don't remember.
What we don't know. Okay, well, we're gonna.
I don't know what I don't know, and I can't remember what I can't remember. So, but I know that it was between. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. It'll happen in this lifetime, kiddo.
Oh, it's happening in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
No, it's here. It's here
Yeah.
right now. And
Yeah.
so if I was to look at what it's taken me to get over myself and what I imagine Joe Blog's normal person out there would be willing to do in order to wake up sufficiently to get over themselves enough to bring their gifts fully, I'd say, no, we don't have a chance. If I were to look at the science and our behaviors and how much carbon needs to be pulled down, how fast, and the fact that we're losing the ice sheets no matter what we do, I would say, no, we haven't got a chance. So if you put my lack of faith in humanity and my knowledge of science together, I would say we've got maybe 4 habitable years left. I think then we're going to hit levels of climate change that render a nightmare scenario, the likes of which we can't even comprehend. And I think the powers that be know that we're heading exactly for that extremely fast. But what we don't know is what happens when certain circumstances break through the carapace of the human heart and the insanity that we've been living, because that's happening. That's happening. It's happening all around the world. People are starting to question. At the same time, the vibration of the planet is lifting.
Mhm.
So Gaia, or however you want to perceive it, to me, we have a fully conscious planet. So Gaia is awakening and ramping up.
Mhm.
We have no idea what that does to our consciousness. You know, if you look at the epochs, you know, we're at the bottom of the Kali Yuga, we're at the bottom of the darkest of the dark ages in terms of consciousness. If you look at Indian philosophy, or, you know, it's like, we're at the bottom of the bottom of the bottom. There's no further down to go energetically, vibrationally on this planet in terms of her biorhythms than now. So we got 2,000 years on the way back up again in order to, you know. So there is an ancient Tibetan myth: when 1,000 goddesses gather, the divine feminine will rebirth through their combined energies, and the vibration on the planet will shift from one of fear to one of love. And when I first heard that, this was before Tree Sisters existed, I was just thinking about it. I remember thinking, oh my God, when enough women understand that we are more than our egos and can come together in a birthing circle and merge our consciousnesses so that something greater than us can come through, we could unleash a force of love on this planet that's never been seen before. I mean, we've been separated since the witch burnings. We had almost 400 years of rampant persecutions. If you're a white woman, you're sitting with a massive scar of deepest self-rejection and collective rejection sitting in your nervous system that prevents so many of us from stepping into our power, knowing who we are, understanding what it means to be a woman, or hanging out together. Why would they so carefully yank a woman away from her power or from each other? Because we're powerful, because we are tapped into the cosmos, because we have the moon inside our wombs, because we know how to listen to life, because we are the seasonal flow on a monthly basis. You know, that doesn't make us better than men. It means we've got a different function to men. It means we're here to listen to life and embody life and create life in a whole other way. So women don't know what they are. Humans sure as shit don't know what they are. We're not consumers. That's not what a human being is. The planet is awakening. Our vibration is shifting. And we have created a set of circumstances designed to cause us to question everything. So we are, you know, and I really believe that life is running the entire show. So there is a consciousness that connects us all, that is the one consciousness that's here, that is inviting our awakening in every single moment with every single thing that's going on. So you've got the Kogi of Colombia who can put crystal in the ground and create water, go to Fukushima and reduce radioactivity, bring in the rain if they want to. You know, there are human beings on this planet who know how to do so-called magic, but actually all they're doing is being in a dynamic relationship with creation as it is and Gaia as she is. There are people all over the world starting to question, what is a human? What are we capable of? What could we do through prayer? What could we do if we just had enough humility to wake ourselves up? So I don't listen anymore to the science that says we're done. And I don't buy in to the old stories that I used to have that we don't want to wake up or that we can't wake up in time. I've hooked myself on to the thought stream that says we have no idea and it's all there to play for, because that thought stream empowers me, centers me, directs me, helps me be useful, does not incapacitate me, does not flatten me, allows this to become an exciting and exciting incarnation, because I will give it anything. There is no part of me that won't walk into a room with God Almighty and just say, come on, wake up. Are you there? Do you understand what you've got? You know, Pat was sitting on this call saying, with a bunch of some very wealthy people on it, and she was saying, do you realize in 5 years' time, your money will probably be useless? Like, you've got 5 years. You've got 5 years to do something useful with your money to try and protect the biosphere so that it can function by the time catastrophic climate change comes. Now, in 2017, indigenous peoples from all over the world gathered in Kauai. They all had the same timeline, 2026. None of them could see beyond it.
Wow, I did not know that.
None of them had spoken to each other about it. None of them knew the others all held the same timelines. But these are the people on the planet who are in communion with Gaia, and they all had the same timeline, 2026. There's our window. What did they see 2026? Catastrophic climate change, the likes of which we can't comprehend. So since then, I've been living in this world of, okay, if I had 5 years to live, what would I do for this planet? You know, it's not about remodeling your home or getting a new car. It's about what's inside here that is requiring these circumstances to bring out.
Yeah.
If this is the cauldron of our creativity that we have created, if this is the alchemical petri dish of evolution that we're placing our species on to see whether we can wake up, then get ahead of the field and wake up. Like, recognize this moment as a profound moment, profound, absolutely profound moment where we're finding each other. You know, have you noticed that? You're starting to find more of the people that seriously make sense of you. Like, it's time to walk away from those people in your life that do not call forth the highest expression of you. And it's time to step into conscious relationship with those people who will be satisfied with nothing less than the fullest expression of you. Because it's that elevation that we need to walk towards the tsunami with, believing that there is something more in us that can rise to the challenge sufficiently, even if we don't know what it is just yet. That's our responsibility. That's non-abdication of power in the face of the mess that we've created.
Boom. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so good.
Wow.
I just love her.
And what's that
Like
YouTube link? This is, you have this on YouTube on your channel. This is powerful.
I've put the link into the chat box, and it's on our YouTube channel, so you can watch the whole thing, and really send it to your friends. Send it to your friends, or send this episode of Straight Talk to your friends. And this episode of Straight Talk will show up also on our YouTube channel, as do all of our episodes of Straight Talk. I want to read a few last comments from our people in our Zoom room. And yes, Lindsay, thank you for showing us how to invest in tomorrow. Suzanne says, thank you, Chad and Lindsay. When I build my little home one day, Soul Solutions is on my list. Dia, the tears are welling up. Stephanie Hankerson, my Christmas shopping is sorted. Trees to plant for all my family on my niece's new plot of land, who's expecting identical twins. Family planting day. Let's all plant a Tree Sister. You know, thank you for reminding me, because I did want to go to Tree Sisters. This is the organization that Claire founded. It's treesisters.org. And actually, in my interview with her towards the end, she talks about Tree Sisters and what they're doing. It's powerful, powerful work. It's very integrated. So please go to treesisters.org, at least sign up, get their news, you know, get on their newsletter. And of course, donate. I put myself down, and I think I'm donating now $100 a month. I think that's what I put in. So please, you know, let's support Tree Sisters. Let's support Soul Solutions. And thank you, everybody, for watching our show. Thank you very much, Chaz and Lindsay, for the great work you're doing and for coming on. And one last reminder, of course, tomorrow night is Saturday Night Alive, and it is going to be a different episode. It's all about technology for good and the people that are focused on wanting to use technology in healthy, conscious ways. So please do join us tomorrow night. And if you register in advance, you can come to the Zoom room for our early Zoom room chat. It's going to be with Dan Mapes at 5:30. And of course, we go live on Facebook at 6 o'clock. So Trish, my wonderful teaching partner, I got to teach a class with Trish earlier today for an online festival. It was fun. Lindsay, Chaz, keep up the great work. And thank you, everybody, so much for joining us on Straight Talk. And next week on Straight Talk, we're going to be focusing more on our bodies. Today was like Mother Earth. Now, next week, it's all about our personal body and how we can improve our personal bodies. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Much love. I'm
Thanks
gonna-
for having us there, Scott, Trish.
Thank you, Scott. and Chris.
Appreciation.
Thank you, Chaz.
Namaste.
Mhm.
Yeah, namaste. Thank you, Lindsay.
Blessings to you all.
Namaste.
Be
Namaste.
empowered.
Good night,
Be
everybody.
empowered. Yeah.